to elect a moderator because we are lacking a moderator tonight. So I'm looking for nominations for moderator for tonight's meeting. Do I have anyone that would like to be nominated or have a nomination? Yes,
We'd like
ma'am.
to nominate Alex Meisner, please.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I would like to just add a little bit of discussion on it. I have had experience in the past town meeting doing moderation for when Mr. Latoile had to recuse himself. So my experience, and have already previously spoken to him just a little bit, I feel I'm worthy of this position to moderate for this meeting. So I'm prepared for it.
Are there any other nominations from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor of Alex Meisner being nominated for the moderator, please signify by raising your hand. It looks unanimous. Mr. Moderator, you may take the podium.
Okay.
Thanks, Alex.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to faithfully impart and perform all the duties and responsibilities incumbent upon you as your elected moderator of the Northfield, according to the bylaws of the town of Northfield and the laws of the town of Northfield.
I will.
No sworn. All yours.
Greetings, folks. So I will do the best I can to keep this in the similar fashion and style of Mr. Latoile.
What's that? Which one? You want me-
So as always, if you have something that you would like to say, please come down to the front.
That would be the moderator.
Make sure you state your name and address for the record. We will also do the best we can to move things swiftly and as polite as we possibly can. Please also, we're not going to engage in debating or back and forth or heckling. Let's keep this formal and professional. If you have a question or would like clarification, please come down, and then I will ask if somebody else would like to address that. Also, since I am on the select board, I will not be involved in any way with any of the motions here or anything like that. My purpose tonight is solely to moderate the meeting and to make it go as smoothly as possible. So first one we have tonight is Article 1, to see if the town will vote to waive the reading of the warrant.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to make a motion to move to waive the reading of the warrant and notice to the constables.
We have a motion. Do I have a second on that?
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody for nay? Clearly passes.
Mr. Moderator, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What are the rules of quorum? There is no quorum.
None required.
So this is this is our town meeting here. There is no quorum. So with that, we will move on to Article 2. See if the town will vote to pay the following unpaid fiscal expenses. Unpaid invoices.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town pay the unpaid fiscal 2021 unpaid invoices as presented in the warrant from the following accounts. 1, Franklin County Solid Waste Management invoice number 21423 for $1,442.56 and $632.30 of invoice 21424 from the transfer station trucking fees account. And number 2, $3,384.26 of invoice 21424 from the transfer station tipping fees account. And 3, $207.34 for invoice 21425 from the transfer station metal and bulky waste account. And for KP Law invoices, plural, 130399, 129320, 129964, for a total of $854.22 from the legal expense account.
Motion's been read.
Finance Committee supports this article.
Finance Committee does support this article. Thank you, Lois.
Second.
We have a second on the motion. Any further discussion on this article? All in favor signify as aye.
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 Anybody for nay? This motion passes. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds sum of money to pay for engineering and/or maintenance work for the Northfield Elementary School, or to take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town transfer $16,161.04 from the Pioneer Valley Regional School carpeting and wiring fiscal year 2020 account and $18,000 from the Northfield Elementary School computer switch fiscal year 2022 account for a total of $34,161.04 to a Northfield Elementary School's project account.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on this article?
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee supports this article.
With support and endorsement from the Finance Committee. Okay, we'll move to the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All in disapproval? This motion passes. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds or otherwise provide a sum or sums of money to pay for the position of Assistant Town Clerk or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town transfer $4,800 from free cash to fund the new position called Assistant Town Clerk.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion on this article? Yes, Lois.
The Finance Committee supports this article.
Finance Committee supports this article. At this point, we will move to a vote on this. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All in disapproval, please signify by saying nay. This motion passes, clearly. So for Article 5, to see if the town will vote to acquire and accept by donation from Northfield Mount Herman School or the current owner, the real property shown as proposed parcel A containing 11,982.29 square feet, shown on a plan entitled Plan of Land Approval, Not Required, Missionary Cottages, Main Street, located in Northfield, Mass., on file with the town clerk, and to authorize the select board to take all actions and execute all documents necessary and appropriate for said acquisition and acceptance, or take any other action thereon or in relation thereto.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town authorize the select board to take all actions and execute all documents necessary to appropriate for the town to acquire and accept by donation from Northfield Mount Herman School or the current owner the real property shown as proposed parcel A containing 11,982.29 square feet, shown on plan entitled Plan of Land Approval Not Required, Missionary Cottages, Main Street, located in Northfield, Massachusetts.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we will move to a vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 For disapproval, please signify by saying nay. This motion passes. So moving on to Article 6 now. To see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds a sum of money to pay for the cost of consulting, engineering, architectural services, and/or construction oversight for an emergency services facility, or take any action thereon or in relation thereto. This was also requested by the Emergency Services Facility Building Committee.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer $90,000 from free cash to pay the cost of consulting, engineering, architectural services, and/or construction oversight for an emergency services facility.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this topic? We will start with Lois.
The Finance Committee supports this article.
With support and endorsement from the Finance Committee. And we see that we have somebody coming down. I'll just have you get a little closer to the mic.
Annie Chappelle, 25 Glen Road. I'm all for a new facility, clearly, we need it. Just want to raise some awareness that the funds are also being used to survey a property adjacent to the wetlands that feed directly into the Millbrook. And I don't know when we can weigh in as townspeople about where this facility will be sited, because I have a lot of information about that. Can anybody tell me, or is this not a place for discussion?
Mr. Cummings?
So I believe we're going to be planning a open meeting regarding that subject, so people can weigh in on that entire public safety facility, the potential purchase of property, whether it's for conservation or use of conservation land and something else. But I think we're planning to have an overall specific meeting regarding that to open it up to the public and address concerns.
Can you tell me when?
We haven't scheduled a date yet, but it's before any action will be taken. That's something that we have to do with the towns weigh in and stuff. So there'll be plenty of time to discuss and exchange ideas before any formal actions are taken.
So, but we're still paying for a topographic survey of property where we think that maybe it shouldn't be? Is that?
Well,
how does that-
Annie, if I can just chime in on that, I just want to let you know that the consultants that are looking into the prospective land that you're speaking of, that's what's got to come back to us so that we can weigh that information that you're concerned about, because every single person on this board shares your concern with the wetlands and et cetera. So once we get back more information, then we can bring you in on it and we can all talk about it.
That's helpful, thank you.
You're welcome.
So the motion and the second was made. We are still in further discussion on this. Is there any further discussion? And then if there isn't, we will then move to a vote. Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All in disapproval, please signify by saying nay. This motion clearly passes. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate transfer from available funds. Is this on?
I think it's off. Hang on 1 second, Lois.
1 second, Lois.
$100,000 from free cash to the town capital stabilization fund.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second on Article 7. Any further discussion regarding the town's capital stabilization fund? Seeing no discussion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
For disapproval, signify by saying no. Or nay, I should say. This vote clearly passes. Article 8. This is about the mosquito control and whether we will be becoming a member to the Pioneer Valley Mosquito Control District. And I know we will have some discussion on this.
Mr. Moderator, it is moved the town vote to become a member in the Pioneer Valley Mosquito Control District pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 252, 5A, and other applicable sections of said law, and to meet this obligation, raise and appropriate by taxation 5,000.
It's not taxation.
Okay.
Has to be free cash, I'm sorry.
Free
Free
cash.
Okay. We're going to correct that. It's not taxation.
Okay, so what we're going to have to do is, let's read the motion again,
Mhm.
and with
Yep.
those corrections.
Yep.
I move.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to become a member in the Pioneer Valley District Mosquito Control District pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 252, 5A, and other applicable sections of said law, and to meet this obligation, raise and appropriate from free cash $5,000 to fund the annual membership fee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this. Any further discussion? Yes, Lois?
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee supports this article.
Support from the Finance Committee. Any additional discussion on this?
No.
Seeing none, we will move to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Disapproval, please signify by saying nay. This motion clearly passes. So Article 9 is a pretty long motion. I'm not going to read all of it. So we will just move on. Article 9.
Oh, Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to accept MGL section, 3923D.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for MGL Chapter 39, Section 23D. Any further discussion on this?
Mr. Moderator, it's Joe Gravelin from Old Ferry Road in Northfield. I make a motion that we indefinitely postpone Article 9.
So we're still in the motion right now. I believe
Okay.
we have to, at the moment, whether we should be either accepting or throwing down this motion. And once that decision has been made, then I think we could entertain a second motion. But I don't really think we can do
All
that
right,
at the moment.
thank you. I'll stand by.
Just a second. If the motion wishes to be changed, it has to be in writing and then submitted to the town clerk. Any further discussion?
Can I finish my writing before we go? Go ahead.
So he has to submit it right now?
Are you wishing to speak,
has-
Ms.?
Joan Stoya, 94 Main Street, Northfield. So I'm asking for clarification. Are you accepting a recommendation for an amendment now, or does it have to be filed with the town clerk sometime later?
Dan?
Are you proposing to amend the motion?
Are you proposing to amend the motion? Joe?
Are they proposing to amend the motion, or is this discussion? He is, but I didn't know what she was doing.
I'm proposing to indefinitely postpone Article 9. I make a motion that we indefinitely postpone Article 9. There's so few people that understand what it is and its impact, and I believe that there really ought to be a larger public debate over this article, because once it's voted in, it's going to be very difficult to make it go away. Basics of Article 9 is to assume that that a board or commission members who miss a meeting in person are able to review the minutes or the filming or the video of the particular meeting that they missed and still be able to vote on it. But as I look around here this evening, all of us got up out of our chairs and walked out on a cold January night to get in our cars and drive here to show up and be able to be heard and vote. And Article 9 is an incredibly powerful and complex piece of legislation that they were going to have to live with for a long, long time. It's not a mandated article. It's one we can choose. But the solution to it already exists, and it's called alternates. So we already have the ability to solve the problem that this is trying to solve by allowing for self-certification. Now, self-certification isn't exactly the best way to go. You just have to take a look at Boeing's relationship with the FAA, or just go to the building inspector's office and ask him if the plumbing contractor, the electrical contractor, or the building contractor is allowed to self-certify, and the answer is no. So, you know, there's reasons for it, and it's human nature that there are reasons for expecting people to show up and participate in the activities and the decisions made on behalf of our town. And again, as I said, alternates have the ability to solve this problem. We don't have to bring more of the Commonwealth's legislation into our town, particularly seeing that most of us don't have enough experience to know what the problems are, but they are out there. The few towns that have adopted this are having a lot of problems right now. So I'm making the motion that we indefinitely postpone Article 9. If there's the ability for the town to have a good conversation about it at a later date where we can get enough people in one place to understand what's going on, that'd be a good way to talk about it. But my golly, this is pretty thin here tonight, and we're not representing, I believe, the majority of the people in town. Here's my...
Just a second, sir.
Raise your hand if you feel like speak to. Well, he may have to vote the motion first. They're working it out. They have to second his motion.
So the way that I'm going to handle this right now is I would like to put the vote onto the floor and let the residents decide. And then if it fails, if the motion does not pass, then we can revisit this topic at another time. But if the motion does pass, then it passes, and once again, we could then revisit it at another time as well. And,
Mary wants to speak.
yes, Mary?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Is this gentleman finished?
He's got to make it second. He's made a motion. Has it been seconded?
He finished.
Yes.
Joe, I just wanted to let you know that this article here is really only for for
Judith-
public hearings, Joe,
Correct, I understand that.
right? And so I think the select board, we're only allowed to miss one, anybody. So it's not like if we just keep missing meetings and we're just watching it at home and voting from there. I don't think, it's not that broad. It's very specific.
I understand that.
Just want to
Okay.
avoid the back and forth talking. Let's just have one person at a time speak, and then if that person is done,
Thank
then
you,
we can
Joe. I'm finished. You're more than welcome to speak.
refer to the other. So I've heard Joe speak, I've heard Mary speak.
Oh, okay.
Did somebody else want to speak? Joan?
if Joe, if the citizen is finished. So I think it's important to have discussion on the specific motion. If it's voted no, then there's no need to have a second motion. But typically, you don't do a motion within a motion.
No.
Right? You have to, once the motion is on the floor, you have to discuss the particular motion. So you are free to come up and say what you don't like about this particular motion. So I would encourage anyone to come up and talk about the motion as it currently stands. I will say a couple of points on the motion because I had to look this up. It's called the Mullen Rule. It's been around since 2006. And it only applies to boards that do hearings. This is not public meetings. This is only hearings. So in the town of Northfield, you would be talking about boards like the Select Board, the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission, and potentially the Historical Commission. So it does not apply to all committees. It does not apply to public meetings. It only applies to hearings. So, for example, in the Select Board, if we had a dog hearing, which we've had, and it went over multiple meetings, and one person missed one meeting, they could certify that they had watched the proceedings from the prior meeting. But it only applies to one meeting. It's not a continual pass of not being able to attend. My understanding is that this came about because a town was sued because two members, because they missed meetings for legitimate, perfectly legitimate reasons like vacation, illness, et cetera, over a multi-meeting process, they voted to abstain. This was in the town of Brewster. And as a result, the developer sued the town on the decision. So there's two ways of looking at this. One is the committee or the commission and their attendance, and also how the process affects working with people and companies who come before the boards. And if it does require more discussion to the points that have already been made, then I would certainly be comfortable personally as a citizen of Northfield of voting it down now and then continuing to discuss it and bring it up, because it is an option that the town should consider. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Further discussion? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This amendment or article is deceptively simple. To finish the, and now, thanks, Joe. To finish the story about the town of Brewster, the Supreme Judicial Court supported, overturned the permit that was given in the case of the planning board people who didn't show up. This article is identical, as it says, to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 39, Section 23D, which was enacted as a workaround after that court case. And it was a workaround during the Romney administration. And so in our case, in a very small town, I don't know how many people they have in Brewster, and a lot of the towns that have enacted this are on the Cape. So it seems to be rather a localized thing. But in my view, this takes the public out of public hearing. I think it's really important for board members to show up and be counted and listen to their constituents during public hearings. Public hearings are adjudicatory activities. They are legal. They're not like, it's not like missing a historical commission meeting and just discussing the topics of the day. This is a legal proceeding. We have a remedy, has been pointed out. The remedy is the alternate system. So why are we solving a problem that applies to a couple of different boards with legislation that is not necessary and that ties your hands down the road in the future? And I also echo the concern that there are not enough people here tonight to make this decision. This is deceptively simple, and it takes the public out of public hearing. Thank you.
Alice?
Thank you, Joan.
Yes, Andrea?
I just want to speak to why this was brought to me to be included. Although it is a few number of boards, I believe almost all of the boards that this pertains to, we have, do not have alternates. And the reason it was brought to me was because, and it was brought to me over a year ago, and I've been making them wait for a town meeting, is that there are times when a small board, for inadvertent reasons, sometimes there's only 3 members, can't do a quorum. And therefore, a public hearing is held, a quorum doesn't show, and therefore no one can vote on it, and they have to republish, reschedule, and often that means putting an ad in the paper. They have to be 2 weeks before the public hearing. And they've had some complaints from applicants by making what should be a 2 or 3 week process turn into sometimes 4 or 5 or 6 weeks because a quorum was unable to be held. So that was why it was brought. It was not an intention to take the people out of the process or to let people not vote on things. It simply had to do with smaller boards being able to establish a quorum in time for a public meeting, because the public meeting is not a public hearing is not a public meeting, and they require publication and often filings. So that was the impetus that came to me. I just want people to have a little bit of the background, and then you can obviously discuss whether you want to pass it.
Yes.
Hi, Brian Brault, Mount Herman Station Road. I guess more of just a procedural question, because I'm a little bit confused as to where we're at.
So we're still on the motion right now.
Is this, in essence, debating a motion to pass over?
No.
No.
So we're still in the motion right now, so if the motion fails, then it doesn't pass, of course, and we move on, and this will stay the way it is. But if it does succeed, then we will have to follow the new rules guiding this motion.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? You want to pop the mic up?
Back. Took it right off. Back. There you go. Don Campbell, 38 East Street, in town. A couple of things. The first short one is an alternate system would solve the problem. Simply. So we might want to think about changing how we do things to include official alternates. The second thing, I was privileged to be part of a meeting in Boulder, Colorado, between Quakers and indigenous people. And at the end of it, we felt good that we were making progress, and we talked about how do we keep things going. Now, this was back when a lot of things in the computer we enjoy now weren't there. Talked about as, pretty much a flat page and then email. And one of the people, can't remember which tribe she was, she said, I don't think that's good, because emails and things are great for logistics, and planning when you're going to meet and et cetera. But when matters of substance come up, we need to be breath to breath, face to face. So, in my opinion, I want to see a no vote and take it up again after we as a town get a chance to season it.
Okay, discussion has been heard. I will call one more time if anybody has anything else they would like to ask a question on.
This is a procedural question. We're voting whether or not to accept my motion, or we're voting
No.
whether or not to accept the select board's motion?
The select board's motion.
Okay, thank you.
But just remember, if this does fail, your motion is pretty much, what you're asking for, Joe, is pretty much what will be happening. It will be shot down. So, at this point, I will move in to take a vote on this. So, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those in disfavor, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Let's do a hand count on this just because of the controversy of it. I understand that the nay did represent itself as louder, but it could have just been a few people raising their voice. So at this time, I'd like to do a hand count. So all those in favor, please raise your hand.
It's because the Concom couldn't hold a public hearing for about 6 months. They couldn't get 3 members with that. They came to me and said, we need the motions.
All in disfavor, please raise your hand. There we have it. This motion fails.
Everyone needs to be an alternate.
I hope you all sign up to be alternates.
Moving on now to Article 10. This has to do with the renumbering and recaptioning of the general bylaws, inserting chapters, articles, and sections, subsection titles, updating internal references.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to make a motion that the town vote to renumber and recaption the general bylaws of the town as presented in the warrant.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this motion?
I'll speak to that for a little bit because I was instrumental in trying to do this. This is a process of codification that we voted on several years ago and has spent around $10,000 to take the bylaws and put it in document form so it's easy to understand. The first part is the general bylaws. They're just going, basically it's renumbering and looking through it and editing and changing things like the Board of Selectmen to Select Board. It has not changed any of the bylaws whatsoever as far as doing that. That has to be done, if you're going to have a bylaw, that will be done later on. This is just taking what we have now and putting it in document form, putting it in an easier way to access it. And from now on, basically any new bylaws will be added to the code. Just like you have a code to build your house, this is a general code. The general codes are usually under the jurisdiction of the select board. So this was part of the deal that an outside company is working on these documents. And for the most part, they'll be online and we will have hard copies in the town hall.
We are still in further discussion of this motion.
It's Joe Gravlin again. To get clarity, the changes that are going to happen are what's on our warrant tonight, am I
Correct.
correct?
There's 2 pages. One has to do
Yep.
with general bylaws and one has to do with zoning bylaws.
Thank you.
Don't fall.
Bob McEwen, 619 Pine Meadow Road. I am no longer on the Board of Health, but I was on that for quite a few years, 15 years. And I wanted to speak specifically to Rabies Control. What's written here,
Is that the dog? Are we getting into the dog?
what's that?
Are we getting into a different bylaw?
You done animal control?
That's on a different motion.
Rabies Control, it's, are we not dealing with that right now?
Not at the moment, no. That's enough.
That's in a couple other articles, Bob.
All right, this was 10. I thought we were
Article
on.
12, Bob.
All right, calm down right here.
Okay. So we're still on Article 10 for the renumbering and recaptioning of the general bylaws. Any other further discussion on this? Okay, I'll move to a vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All in disfavor, please signify by saying nay. Clearly passes. Article 11.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to adopt the changes to the general bylaws as set forth in the final draft of the code of the town of Northfield dated October 2021 and presented in this warrant.
We have a motion and a second on this. Any further discussion?
Again, this is just to bring everything up to speed. They're looking, make sure we're in compliant with the state of Massachusetts, and also that the language is appropriate for this time as far as doing it. Again, it's just changing some numbering systems, so everything that would be in there, if it came under number 200, it would be under that. So everything is now going to be done so it can be found easily and with and can be added to very easily also.
Yes.
Ted Thornton, 60 Highland Avenue. Can I assume that we will have an opportunity to discuss all of the portions of the chapters? Or are we voting on the whole package right now? The whole article, Article 11? Up or down?
Okay, if you're talking about the zoning bylaws, nothing has changed.
No, this is the
No,
general.
I'm talking about,
Except some language that is.
Well, there's some changes, Dan, minor
What's that?
changes. It's on the page.
Oh, general? No.
Yeah, he's got them.
If you have a copy of the pages as far as in it,
in the
it will
warrant.
show you what the changes are that are being made, and it's more or less language that is being changed. It's
Well-
not changing the essence of any of the bylaws.
well, I do have a question. Maybe it's along the same line that Bob just mentioned. I see an omission from one of the chapters that I would like to bring to
Some of them
attention.
probably did not have to be edited. These were the major editing of the general bylaws and of the bylaws. Just the editing of it. If the wording was correct in the bylaws that is there today, it would stay there as far as doing it. This is only the editing of the bylaws to bring them up to Massachusetts code, and like I said, it's basically vocabulary and that to make it appropriate.
So are you telling me when we get to chapter 140 on streets and sidewalks, I'll have an opportunity to ask a question before we vote this up or down?
So he needs to ask.
Yeah, if you
now.
want to ask a question on it, as far as, yeah.
Now or later? Now, okay. Sidewalks, I'm on page 5, looking at section 140-5. I don't see Winchester Road, the sidewalks along Winchester Road listed as subject to the clearance of snow or ice. I'm wondering why Winchester Road, with that very long sidewalk, is omitted.
Do you want me to speak to that, Dan?
Sure.
Please
Because
do.
we didn't make a substantive change, it wasn't in the original bylaw, so to add that would be a change to the bylaw. So we weren't, there's some violation penalty changes, but generally speaking, most of the language is the same. So if you were to look in the code the way, the general bylaws, the way they stand now, it's not on there. So
Are those not town sidewalks along Winchester Road?
they were not included when this original vote was made, and so they have not been included in the change here. To change that, it would have to be proposed as a bylaw change.
I so propose.
Then you'd have to bring it up as a general bylaw
He has
at
to
a
do
later
an
date.
amendment.
And what, sorry?
You'd have to bring it up at a later date and ask for it to be a bylaw.
What later date could I do that?
You'd have to discuss it with the select board.
I would say make a written proposal to the select board. They can consider it, because they can certainly add it to a future town meeting, including annual town meeting, if you so like.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
We are still in further discussion on Article 11. If there is any additional further discussion, I will entertain it. Okay, we will move on to a vote for Article 11. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
In disapproval, please signify by saying nay. Clearly passes. Article 12.
B.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to repeal and replace the sections in the general bylaws titled, quote, "Animals at large on public way," end quote, quote, "dog leash law," end quote, quote, "dog waste," end quote, and, quote, "registering and licensing of dogs," end quote, and replace them with a new animal control bylaw as presented in this warrant.
Second that motion.
We have a motion and a second on Article 12. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask then about the severability clause. So that I would take to under administration A, if any provision should be found invalid, the remainder is in force, and that could be changed. Is that correct? The error?
Could you repeat the question, please, Bob?
Yep. Under this bylaw, there's a mention of severability. That's in the beginning of the law under administration. So if any provision should be found invalid, the remainder shall remain in force. If it was invalid, it could be changed, correct? All right, I just wanted to mention under rabies control, the town shall annually nominate a minimum of one animal inspector. But that's the Board of Health, actually, that makes that recommendation to the state. So that's one specific.
Bob, if I can answer that? It's town with a small t, so it's whoever has the authority. If it's the Board of Health, then it's the
Okay.
Board of Health.
Okay, the other thing, and this is kind of major, number 3 under rabies control, all bites by dogs, cats, and others should be reported to the animal inspector and animal control officer as soon as possible by the person bitten or by the owner or keeper of the animal or both. There's a specific, that medical doctors, emergency rooms, hospitals have to report that to the animal inspector. And without that, we are not protected.
Right, that's in Mass General Law.
What's that?
That's Mass General Law. So they're not exempt from this because it's not in our bylaw, but we don't have the ability to enforce that. That's the state law. So we're putting in our articles that we can enforce.
Okay, but I'll tell you, I enforced it on the Board of Health. I met with emergency room people at the Franklin and various places and said, who wants to take on this lawsuit? And they realized that was their responsibility to report that to the Board of Health and the animal inspector. So that's all I'm saying. I just think it would be nice to include that in the law. That's all.
We have our animal control officer present here tonight. If he would like to come down and speak on that, he is more than willing to, but of course he will not be forced to.
I know some of you guys here. My name is Kyle Dragon. I'm the Franklin County Sheriff's Office Regional Control Officer. 2019 Northfield joined the regional program. And what this is to summarize it, I guess I could say, is a lot of the towns when we took over, their animal control bylaws had not been updated in some time and were no longer in alignment with Massachusetts general law. So this entire packet, as lengthy as it is, brings all the town's bylaws up to current state level standards. It also makes them uniform across all the towns that we cover so that no matter where we are, it's the same language, same fees, same fines throughout the entire county. In regards to the rabies control, if I may address that question.
Please do.
I put that in there because, as you mentioned, it can be hard to get stuff from doctors. I know there's a lot of private practitioners, especially smaller ones, who never submit anything regardless. And why they are governed under the Massachusetts CMR to do that, this at least allows us to give a little more leverage and would allow the town, if there was an issue, to take action against them in that case as well.
Further discussion?
Yeah, we met behind the town hall, we discussed this. And the thing that grates on me is it is the responsibility of emergency rooms physicians and that. And if it's not done properly, if it's not done quickly, you could lose a life. Rabies has a specific time that you need to be vaccinated for. And it's come close a couple of times where we didn't find out about this until a couple of weeks later. And if it weren't, the animal wasn't rabid at that point, but if it had been, we could have been looking at an enormous lawsuit. It's just something that needs to be, and the animal inspector in the town is responsible for rabies and ear tags, and that hasn't changed. The state has been pushing the animal control officer, which is great. It substitutes for the dog officer. But cats can be rabid. There's a lot of animals that can be rabid, and that is an important thing for us to stay on top of. That's all. Here he is now.
Any further discussion on this?
Dan Gray, 40 Maple Street, also animal inspector. A lot of these things that you have in here are controlled by my roles, and I just don't want to get in a conflict with your animal control officer. Back when the state changed the rules they changed the wording, no longer dog officer, it's animal control officer. And when they did that, we could only find somebody that wanted to be the dog officer, they didn't want to be the animal control. So what the selectmen did, and I can't remember how long ago it was, but maybe Jack, you might remember. No? I think you were on the board at the time. But what the select board did was they appointed myself and Tommy Walker as special animal control officers. And my knowledge, that's never been rescinded. Not that it matters to me because I have enough to do anyways, but I'd rather, I have nothing against the rules that you have here other than I don't want it stepping on my toes. And you have some rules in here that are stepping on my toes. And we know what happens when it happens. So I want to know that you guys are aware of all this. You're trying to voting for, let me see if I can find it in here. Well, of course, when you're trying to find something, you never can. But what you're doing is you're voting on something that's already in place.
I don't know what that means.
Discussion? Yes, B.
We have very few bylaws right now having to do with things like barking and humane treatment and other things that I think most of us have all come to expect that animal control, anyone involving animals, takes care of. So my recommendation would be, we have a huge gap in our current bylaws. This is a comprehensive and robust set of bylaws regarding animal control. And some of the things sound like a belts and suspenders type approach to one of the earlier points. I think it actually makes sense to me that we would try and get a rabies notification any way we could get it, from the victim, from the owner, or from a medical professional.
Can I address that? Mr. Moderator, can
Yes,
I address
sir.
that?
Please do.
What you're
I'm
referring...
not finished.
Oh, I'm sorry, you weren't finished. Go ahead.
No, I'm not finished. And also, as the chair of the Regional Animal Control Advisory Committee, it is really important to get the best use of the town's money, Northfield as well as the other 7 towns that share Mr. Dragon as animal control officer. To have an animal control officer who has something to look at no matter where he is and what he's doing. He spends time now which time is money. He spends time now having to figure out, oh, I'm in Northfield. I can only enforce these things. I'm in Gill. I can only enforce these things. This is actually an effort where all of the towns are asked to consider this at a town meeting. So we get the best use out of an animal control professional. And I would say if there's things in here that need to be corrected, we have the opportunity to correct them at a later point. We're currently at a special town meeting. If there's something that needs to be corrected, it can be raised and we can address it at the annual town meeting. But what I would say is we need a strong foundation on which we can actually act and make changes. Otherwise, we're just putting little bits and pieces in our bylaws, which if you look at our general bylaws, as the Town Governance Study Committee did in 2018 and 2019, one, they weren't collated, so that's where Dan came in, the town clerk. Two, they didn't address a lot of the things that people thought were going to be addressed, like noise and barking. So this is an attempt to rectify gaps in our general bylaws. If they do need, and I would say the problem is address the gaps. The gaps are, we don't have a lot of this in place, and if they need to be adjusted, we can adjust them. And we have the annual town meeting coming up. So I would urge people, if there are things that need to be clarified, then let's clarify them and we can make minor changes, hopefully, at the annual town meeting. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
We are still in further discussion of this. Dan, did you want to?
Yeah, I want to address her in reference to something in here, and maybe I'm not against all these rules that you guys come up with, the bylaws. What I'm against is if they report the rabies to him, that's going against state law, because that's confidential information, and the only person that's supposed to have that is me. So what you're doing is you're going against the state law here.
Exactly what chapter and section would that be?
I'm sorry?
What chapter and section would that be that we'd be violating?
129.
129? So the one that's cited in here? 129, section 15?
Could be. I didn't get that far into it.
Mm-hmm. What one was it, Bernie?
Any further discussion on this? If not, we will move towards a
Yeah,
vote.
that's the one, yeah.
I see another individual here.
Okay.
Charles Blanker, Mount Herman Station Road. First of all, I got to say that when I saw the warrant for this meeting, I was astonished. There was a general bylaw being put into effect in town, and there was no advance notice of it, as far as I knew. No, never had any input into what was going to be in the bylaw or any of the information on it. And I don't think that's the right way to write a bylaw. I understand that some of the bylaws need to be updated and things, but you don't put in a general bylaw and then say, oh, if you don't like part of it, we can change it later, maybe. You make it correct the first time before it goes into effect. That's one thing. And there's a number of specifics in this bylaw that really aren't proper. There's an area in there that says the town can spay or neuter an animal if it picks it up. No due process, nothing to say whether it was a right or wrong, just gives the town the right to do it. Doesn't say who's going to do it, who's going to make that decision, why the decision is going to be made. All it says in that bylaw is the town can do it. Who's going to make that decision? Who's going to make that decision?
Mr. Moderator?
Are you done?
No,
sir?
I like an answer to that, and then I've got some other issues, too.
Okay. Could you just state your question? And
I'm asking who's going to decide if a dog that's picked up has to be spayed or neutered. It specifically says that in the bylaw. Doesn't say who's going to make that decision or why.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Mr. Mallory.
Go ahead, Mary.
Two questions, or statements. One is, if the last, or at least 3 or 4 meetings that are televised, we've been discussing just this. So there's no lack of transparency. If you watch the whole meetings and all the meetings, you'll hear that we're discussing this. Just so you know that we're not.
I don't normally watch.
Sorry,
Well,
sir,
then
I just
that's-
want to have Mary, go ahead, Mary, please.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying. We're not keeping it from you. You're not privy to it because you're not watching the meetings. That's that. The second thing, and, you know, I don't know where this is in the articles. If you could point that out, that would be awesome.
It's under fees, section C.
Section
The
C.
town may require a dog to be spayed or neutered if applicable.
Section C.
E, subsection E.
E. Okay. I'm looking for, if said animal remains at large for 12 hours after notification, no, that's not it, is it?
No, it's
Sorry, I'm just looking.
fees enforcement, section C,
Fees.
subsection E.
Fees and enforcements. Okay, hold on.
It's on page 19 at the top.
Thank you very much for that. Page 19 at the top.
So I know the animal control officer would like to speak on this
Okay,
one more time while we're in
time.
further discussion. So I just want to make sure that I can get to him.
I don't see that here. Where does it say that?
C, E.
The town may require a dog. Right. So violation of dog control laws shall utilize the following schedule of fines as defined in MGL, Chapter 140, Sections 173A. This goes back to if your dog is running loose and it's actually against the law of Northfield to be running without a leash on, the town may require a dog to be spayed or neutered, if applicable.
Right, what does that mean?
Okay, we've got a lot of back and forth going on right now. I want to make sure that I get to everybody here.
No, I'm finished. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, so you're finished, Mary? Okay, just a second, Heath. Officer Dragon, if you'd like to come down front, please.
I thought that's what you were talking about. 173A governs, Mass General Law 140, 173A is violation of dog control orders. It's a Massachusetts state law. After the fourth subsequent offense, the hearing authority, which would be your select board, can, at their discretion, order said dog to be spayed or neutered if it's still intact. That's what that is.
If you'd like to speak, please come to the mic, sir, if you'd like to speak. All right, you've spoken already. I know, Heath, you rose your hand, so if you'd like to speak now.
Yeah, just in response to that, probably to clarify a little bit better. So this would be part of a process where you have a first offense, a second offense, a third offense. So this animal's still out there, and just like we would make a determination in a very unfortunate circumstance of a dangerous animal to possibly be put down, this would be under one of those determinations if we had so many violations of an animal running wild and it was possibly not spayed or neutered, the select board could make that decision. It seems extreme, but so is putting an animal down. It would be an extreme offense of repeated violations, but would require a dog hearing to go all the way up to that level. Hope that clarifies a little bit.
Thanks, Heath.
Yeah.
It does clarify it, but it doesn't say in the bylaws that it's a fifth offense that would stick that in. You've got fines for first offense through fourth offense, and then there's a statement that says the town may require a dog to be spayed or neutered, without any indication that it has to be a subsequent offense. And you're just saying that that's what it's intended to be. If so, the bylaw should be written properly to indicate that.
I'm just reading it in the, Mr. Meyer, can I?
Please do, yep.
So I'm just reading it as it's written here, A, B, C, D, all the way to E. It's the last one, underneath fourth, so it'd kind of be elements like a law. So that's how I'm interpreting it. I'm not sure if that's applicable. Maybe Andrea can speak to that.
Just a second, B.
Yeah, it's in the, it's because it's, that's why the first citation is in Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 173A. It's sending you to that law for the interpretation.
Right, so you would go,
That's why these cite the specific laws. Otherwise, you'd just be printing a compendium of mass law. So it's giving you the town bylaw, and it's subject to these Mass General laws for interpretation.
You mean the Mass General
Okay,
law
so we're still in further
require this?
discussion right now, I just,
No one's requiring it. It's not even required in the bylaw. May require means the select board could order it, but it doesn't say it is required. May is in front of it.
Well, I think this whole thing needs further discussion before we move on. I mean, there's, you know, the American Kennel Club says there should be due process before these decisions can be made. That's not spoken to in the bylaw here.
All of these are made by hearing.
If that's the case, it should be. It should be specified in the bylaw. And there's a number of these instances. You've got a series of offenses for dogs that bark. But we live up on Mount Herman Station Road, and our property backs up on a number of fields and then the state forest. And there's coyotes howling all the time. And it's perfectly easy to mistake a howling coyote for one of our dogs howling in our backyard, which does happen from time to time. And how do you make that determination as to what's making the noise? No, there's nothing in here. It's just the way it's written. If you hear a noise that sounds like a dog, then the dogs are at fault. That's not necessarily the case. You know, how do we approach this?
so at this point of the discussion, I want to honor that, that B would like to offer a comment on it.
Due process is a hearing, and hearings come before the select board in this particular area. So both the complainant and the person who owns the dog would come before the select board as a public hearing. The reason why you're to the point regarding whether E should be fifth, I think D, fourth/subsequent. I'm looking at the word subsequent, meaning, and maybe Kyle, Mr. Dragon can weigh in on this, is there's no requirement for the dog to be spay or neutered. It's an option after many offenses. And the fourth/subsequent, to me, implies, and I'm going to look to Mr. Dragon, that it could actually be more than 4 times that an offense occurs before the spay and neuter. That's my interpretation.
Could be, but, you know, the bylaws should be specific as to when this could occur.
If you'd like to
and why.
speak, just come to the mic, sir.
Pardon?
I'd like you to come to the mic if you'd like to offer additional
Oh, I'm
comments.
sorry. I'm just saying the bylaws should be specific as to what they mean and when they're enforced. And this bylaw is very general, and it doesn't speak specifically to the needs of the town of Northfield and things. And I think it should be subject to further review before we vote on it. I don't think this is the time or place to do it. There's very few people here, like was brought up on a previous article, and the same is true here. And for some of us that enjoy our dogs, this is an important issue, and we'd like to get it correct. There's a provision in the bylaw that says we have to have our kennel licensed by the 31st of March. It's been impossible the last 4 or 5 years to get it done on a timely basis. Dan can speak to that. We've been over and over this. We have to almost beg people to come out and inspect our kennel before we can get a license. And it's done usually in June or July sometimes. And that's not our fault. We try to do it on a timely basis, and it hasn't been happening. But you've got it in the bylaw that we're in violation if it's not done by the 31st of March.
So I'll just...
That's not fair either.
I'll just reaffirm to people that, since the
That's in the
motion-
current and existing
Just a second,
bylaws.
Andrea, that the motion has been made, and that a vote will be happening, and if the people in the auditorium, the residents who are going to be voting, if they feel strongly against it, then they can vote no, and that will honor what you are requesting.
Okay, thank you.
And if a yes vote happens, then a yes vote happens. Would you like to speak, Andrea?
I was just going to let him know that's in the current bylaw. There's no change with that. That's in our existing bylaws, the March 31st date.
If you'd like to speak, please come to the mic. Okay, so we've taken a lot of discussion in. I will entertain any further discussion one last time.
There's somebody over there.
Okay, please come forward to the mic.
I'm Joanne Picard, from 229 Maple. I have a question about the livestock section, Section A. Would you please define that a little bit better? I need more direction on that. And I'll read it to you. Any owner or person having care of any sheep, swine, horses, etc., shall construct and maintain a suitable barrier that a reasonable person would find sufficient to prevent said animals or fowl from becoming a nuisance by way of trespass upon public ways, etc. The reasonable person, I realize that this is not easy, that this is not going to be easy to define any better, but could you try?
Somebody would like to offer a response for that?
Actually, reasonable person is a legal standard, so that it's not really actually being made up here.
Well, okay, could you just try to define what you consider?
It's usually with a meeting of the minds. So if a group of people consider something to be fair and valid and reasonable, then it's considered reasonable. That's the only way to define. I mean, you can't list everything in here, but that is a legal term of art, a reasonable standard.
That doesn't give me a lot of help.
In this particular case, if this helps, there is a fence viewer who is someone who would be the person who would be...
A fence viewer?
Yeah, there's someone called a fence viewer who actually determines whether fences are intact or reasonable.
Where is this person?
I'd have to look and see who the appointed fence viewer is in my term here. They haven't been called upon, but it is a actual statute, a fence viewer.
Okay, thank you. Heard of it.
Dan?
Yeah, I can address it.
Please do.
When I do a barn inspection, that's what I do, is I check the animals, I check the fencing, I check if they have housing or not. So it's all covered under my area, if that makes sense.
Okay. Just to remind everybody, we are still in a motion right now and entertaining further discussion. Heath?
This is for Officer Dragon. If you could just speak to the legality that Mr. Gray pointed out earlier, that would be in violation of Mass General Law, Chapter 129, as the way he stated it. Is that true? Being a legal expert on the matter?
I'm going to speak to the fact that that's the first time that's come up, so I would have to thoroughly review that section law to see if there is a footnote in there. To that matter, I'm not familiar with that. It has to be directly made to the animal inspector and solely only the animal inspector. But it could, I'm not saying it's not there, but to my knowledge, it's not.
Dan? Okay, yep.
With all due respect, I've been the animal inspector for the better part of 15 years. I think I'm a little bit of a professional on this. You just referred to him as a professional. You didn't refer to me as a professional, even though I've had the experience of it. You saying that I don't know what I'm talking about?
I didn't say anything about him being professional. That wasn't me. But I will take your comments. Is there any further discussion on this? Okay, so for the vote for Article 12, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye at this time.
Aye.
For all those in disfavor, please signify by saying nay. This motion clearly passes. Article 13, Chapter 100 for unlawful noise.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to repeal and replace the sections in the general bylaws titled Noise and Excessive Noise Bylaw, and replaces them with the new Unlawful Noise Bylaw as presented in this warrant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for Article 13. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those in disfavor, please signify by saying nay. This motion clearly passes.
Who's this one? Register.
Article 14.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to add the general bylaw pertaining to unregistered motor vehicles as presented in this warrant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for Article 14. I will entertain further discussion for this. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those in disfavor, please signify by saying nay. This motion clearly passes. Article 15.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to adopt the changes to the zoning bylaws as set forth in the final draft of the Code of the Town of Northfield, dated October 2021, and presented in this warrant.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none? For those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
For those in disfavor, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Article 16.
Mr. Moderator. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to adopt the changes to zoning bylaws as set forth in the final draft of the Code of the Town of Northfield dated October 2021 and presented in this warrant.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those in disfavor, please signify by saying nay. This motion clearly passes. So we're at the end of all of our motions and articles at this time. So with that being said,
Okay. Mr. Moderator?
yes,
I make a motion to adjourn for the evening.
we have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a second on that. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those in disfavor? Clearly passes. Special town meeting for the town of Northfield, I hereby is adjourned.
Thank you, Northfield, for coming to the meeting tonight.